CGTN's World Insight. A day after the Paris Olympics draws to a close, a big medal haul for Team China. What enabled the team's Olympic campaign with new records and breakthroughs? What's next for Team China?
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. The Paris Olympics has just wrapped up, so a jubilant Team China is taking home 91 medals in total, 40 of them gold. In the last 16 days, young athletes showed the world their athletic mettle. Team China made a big difference with many first golds. So what do their performances tell us about China's new generation of athletes? Where is China's sports industry headed? Answers from today's panelists. On Paris game and also the Team China's performance, we are joined in Beijing, Paul Dong, co-founder and sports industry observer of EI Asia Limited, and also Justin Downs, president of Access Leisure Management. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen. Well, the Chinese team suggested that there has been tremendous breakthrough for this year's Paris Summer Olympics. So how do you understand the breakthrough, Paul, that the Chinese team has been talking about?
Yeah, I think at this time of the moment, I think, right after the closing ceremony and the final day of 16-day of competitions, I think back home here, the general public of China, they will look at the numbers finally because they have been focused on particular sports, and we can expect that down the road in the future editions of the Olympics, we will have our expectations to have China not outside of the top 3 anymore. And that's something that we can expect. And then we look at the details, the breakdown of those medals. And we realize we continue to be dominant in some of the traditional sports like diving, ping pong. At the same time, we don't expect them to be even more because we have already swept all gold medals available. But at the same time, we will be asking ourselves, can we continue or sustain this momentum when some sports will not be included in the future Olympics?
I think it is a breakthrough to see how we do in some of these new sports. Yes, as Paul said, we're traditionally very strong in ping pong, badminton, diving, these types of things. But to come through in things like tennis and swimming and even things like BMX cycling, some of these sports, Chinese people didn't even know that we had athletes that were competing in these sports and at this high level. So what it's done is it's really shone a bright light on the change in Chinese preferences for sport. It's not just about traditional sports anymore. We're a big population here and we can excel on the world stage along with the best.
How much is the public being brought with the professional sports that China has been doing so well in the Olympics?
Yes, Tian Wei, I think it's so far the best question I have been asked for the past couple of weeks. I think, when some people question if we are just too obsessed about winning medals or even gold medals. But at the same time, I think the fact or the truth is, I think the top leadership and also sports governing bodies of China have been very clear for quite many years that China shouldn't just copy the Cold War style or pattern of winning medals only to motivate the general public or the population of the country to engage in their own businesses. But with a population of 1.4 people, you don't look at sports to mobilize other industries or businesses. You look to sports to create more job opportunities in this huge population. And that would mean that you need to motivate people to engage rather than watching and cheering. So I think, first of all, besides winning those medals, I think the country is quite clear that we should be represented more broadly in almost all sports so that we can expand the participation. So the key word is representation. You need to be happy about getting some athletes, such as sports, just one athlete in one sport, to participate on the global stage without winning any medal. And that will be a long-term development plan, and that will do good to society and also to even national economy, that sports do play a bigger role than simply winning medals on the Olympic stage.
Well, Paul has a lot of serious considerations over there, but really that is your home turf, isn't it, Justin? I mean, sports tourism, sports job opportunities. How much has how much has this Paris 2024 managed to bring the Chinese public with it in terms of their enthusiasm to participate in sports, and also looking at the future of sports industries?
Well, I think our journey and our fascination with sport in China goes back to 2008, where we really jumped onto the world stage, sporting wise, and the population of China all of a sudden went on one large health kick. Everybody started running and swimming and cycling and playing tennis, eating healthier. When Chinese athletes do well, the population follows along, and they heavily influence the preferences and activities of the people. I've noticed a big shift and a change in people's personalities through China's sporting success. It's really great to watch, and it's very good for our economy.
What kind of sport do you think the Chinese public would fall in love with after this year's Paris Olympics?
Well, Tianwei, I think it varies from one age group to another, and obviously for Gen Z or for the younger generation, I think those new sports like skateboarding and sport climbing and BMX may be a little more technical, and then and even surfing. I do have a very optimistic prediction for surfing in the future, as long as the country has a very, very long coastline. And yeah, because in northern China, you don't expect to see the scene, but so many people are telling me that down in the south, in Hainan and Guangdong, there are so many young kids
vibrant.
Engaging in surfing and
people just travel there like migrant birds.
But the picture has started to change dramatically and fundamentally since 2008. More and more kids are taking up some sports, or Olympic sports or non-Olympic sports, simply based on family funding now. And that's very, very different. I think that's what the government is very glad to see. And now with some sports like skateboarding and also snowboarding being so fashionable among young people, and they would take it as a fashion, as something that they can, interact with one another instead of winning any objectives like winning medals or in the future. I think that will change the lifestyle of a new generation or even more generations in the future.
Talking about that, the Chinese team did very well in some of the new sports, quote unquote, BMX, surfing, breakdancing, rock climbing, and the list goes on. And the age of those who have been doing very well in Team China in these categories extremely young. Some are 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, to say the most. So we are seeing
the 11-year-old.
That's right, the 11-year-old, indeed, that was doing very well. Just watching them competing there is extremely satisfying and exciting for me, I guess for all of you as well. But having said that, though, how much will that reignite the enthusiasm of Chinese parents, to support their kids into sports training? But having said that, though, there's another side of the issue that we are seeing. It is getting ever more expensive to support kids, for example, to go through some amateur training. Tennis is one of those examples. There are many others as well. So how should we see the enthusiasm and also equal opportunities? Justin?
Oh, well, sure. I mean, Chinese parents have always, they're always willing to invest money in their children's growth. And especially when it comes now, sports in Western countries has always been a gateway to some of the best universities, and opportunity. It opens up business opportunities. China is now realizing this as well as the marketability and the economy of sport, what it can do for their children. So yes, it is expensive for a lot of these sports, not just the equipment, but also the physical, the training, the travel, all of these types of things. It is a big commitment, and some families have money and some don't. So there is definitely a requirement for social funding, government funding, the whole ecosystem that has evolved over many decades in North America and Europe. China is now going through this as well. So yeah, I mean, we will see Chinese athletes starting to attend foreign universities, and it's because we realize that sport is actually one of the great enablers. It opens up new social networks, new business opportunities, and great things for the economy and the country in general.
Well, if you look at some of the categories that China has been winning gold medals of this time, even for the 2024 Paris Olympics, more than 27.5% are coming from traditional categories, or traditionally strong for China categories: diving, table tennis, weightlifting, shooting, badminton, gymnastics. Of course, there are new breakthroughs, but these are still the biggest categories. How much talent do you see China still could be in the other categories that have not been traditionally strong for China? How much is there for China to explore? What can be done in order to do that?
Well, I think if we look at even, say, the powerhouses in the swimming pool of the United States, I mean, it was a big surprise and a shock to them that they didn't perform as well as they have in the past. And China cannot also rest on its laurels thinking we've always been strong in ping pong and badminton and diving, because the other countries have been watching China for a long time and have been building their teams and their systems and their athletes. So China cannot rely on just winning these traditional sports over and over again. Michael Phelps said, we've seen China coming from a long way. They've been building, and they finally caught us. Okay, it's not a surprise, but it is a surprise at the same time. So a lot of these new sports, they're also new to other countries. So China is not necessarily competing with such a long history of dominance by these other sports. And the youth will drive this. The youth are seeking lifestyle, as Paul has said. It's all about their culture, their attitude. It's what they wear. It's what music they listen to. It's what food they eat, what cars they drive, what they choose to do with their personal life. And these new sports really are bringing people out to excel. And, things like BMX and surfing and skateboarding definitely will be areas where China will dominate, because it is all about lifestyle and culture. And China's culture is not as traditional as it used to be. It is trying to be, and many of the young people are trying to be as international as they can be. And this is where I think that the youth are going to take control, and we will see much greater success in these sports in the future.
Not only these so-called new sports, but also sports that the public worldwide pays tremendous attention to. For example, the so-called big balls, volleyball, basketball, football, or soccer. Hockey this time, the women did very well. But, some of the traditional so-called big ball categories, there is still much space to improve. What happened to them, especially when there seem to be quite well-established professional system already introduced into China? Why these categories, out of a population of 1.4 billion, still cannot catch up to the top-tier level of the global sport?
We've got to be realistic about this. And
well, especially now, China we have to be realistic.
Exactly. Well, look, I didn't really watch the basketball every single match, but everybody would expect that the U.S. should dominate this. They should win by triple digits against some of these teams, but they don't. They're a group of very talented individuals that don't seem to work really well as a team. So I think I can compare, say, perhaps several of China's team performances to what the expectation should be because of these NBA superstars playing basketball. So, I think China just needs to work more on how we work as a team, and they need to play more as a team, and then they will start to succeed because as individuals, they're very talented. We just need to work on the team element of this, and then we'll start to get somewhere.
Well, a lot of people are fascinated by the styles of some of the young athletes that we witnessed in Team China this time at the Paris Olympics. For example, Pan Zhanle, who has break the world record in freestyle 100 meters for men. And he has been a straight talker, but at the same time with a lot of humor. Meanwhile, we will also see, table tennis. Some of the young players are extremely expressive, while at the same time fun. So as a result, a lot of people are saying, oh, this generations of Chinese athletes, they're very different from the earlier ones. Paul, is that too early in the conclusion?
I don't think so. I think it will be the style and the phenomenon for many years down the road. I think it has so much to do with the internet age. I mean, the social community that they are engaged in online, but now they have stronger personalities, and I think maybe even their teams and even team management encourages them to interact well with their followers and their fans, and so we are seeing very diverse personalities among them, and some are very cooperative, some are very mild and supportive for the media, but some are kind of blunt. That actually makes
and the public enjoyed it. In fact,
yes.
Yeah, it's very different. In fact, the expectations for professional athletes from the Chinese public compared to, let's just say, 2008, right? So, and the public they're very different in the way they want to interact with the young athletes.
And the public is indeed stakeholders in Chinese sports.
Yeah.
Not like in the past, 1980s and 90s. They watched sports and they got inspired to do well or better in their own businesses. But now it's different. It's sports, national sports or international representatives, and also professional sports on the ground. They are part of the public life.
Yeah. Justin?
Yeah, look, it is quite phenomenal. If you look at some old tapes, from 30 years ago, just the athletes were kind of, almost expressionless in the way they conveyed themselves. And now they're just full of personality and full of life. And, they have their own personal brand as well. Yes, they're competing for Team China, but they also have a brand. They have their sponsors. They have their own personal opportunities. They realize that people gravitate toward people who have a strong personality. And this is natural in this younger generation. People just love seeing them smile, looking at them interact with each other, with the other athletes from other countries. They're all part of this great community where they just love doing what they do and they love celebrating each other's success. And people feel for that and they really embrace that. It's great for our social fabric around the world to see these athletes, yes, competing tooth and nail with each other to try to win medals, but at the end of the day, they're all colleagues and they're all doing this for the love of sport. And this changes the people's attitudes on the streets. Watching this type of interaction, it's great for sport. It's great for the community.
In fact, this year's Olympics also put a lot of thoughts for all of us about how to make sure sports are sports, and to make sure that it is free from politics or geopolitics. There's a lot of food for thoughts. In fact, as we speak, I'm sure those discussions are going on. How well do you see the Chinese athletes are trying to keep the balance of being confident, but at the same time humble, as traditionally Asians are? I'm not saying they need to be. I'm just saying, how is that balance reflected on this generation of Chinese national athletes? Justin.
Yeah, look, that is the one thing that stands out to me is the humility of the Chinese athletes. Yeah, you can see the pride. You can see they're so excited to win and to excel. But they're not smack talking as one might see on U.S. TV or things like this. They are quiet and they're respectful, but you can see the passion that they have and their desire and their will to win for their country and for themselves. The one thing about the Olympics, it's always been like that. It's not a place for politics. It's a place where everybody unites under one common theme, and that's to put all of our issues aside. Doesn't matter what our governments might be doing, what our economies might be doing. We're all equal and the same at this for this 2+ weeks. Right. And it was very well demonstrated just this with all the stuff that's going on in the world, in Asia, in Europe, in North America. The world is full of hate and full of discontent, and it's all set aside. It's forgotten about for 2 weeks, and we just wish we could have an Olympics every week then if this was going to be the case.
Of course, there are still 2 wars going on while the Olympics Games are even at this time when the Olympic Games wraps up. It gives a lot of food for thought as to where we are. The Olympic truce didn't happen this time, Paul.
Right, that's very unfortunate. When the Cold War was around, it was, besides other than those boycotting cases, I think it's relatively was easier to realize a truce. But when there are, skirmishes or regional wars going on, and if the conflicting countries are not so well represented on a sporting platform, and there wasn't too much you can do to prevent them from fighting on in their own region. That's a big challenge. That what the Olympic movement should consider what to do in the future.
And at the same time, there's a lot of talk about the role of the media. What is the role of the media when they are there in Paris to cover the games? Is their goal, in fact, to be able to examine every details of human capabilities in sports and be able to inspire? There's a lot of also discussions about that. Justin, Paul, both of you were experienced commentators and observers. Of course, this time you're observing from afar here in Beijing, so am I. I'm really curious as to what your thoughts are as the role of the media. Are they for their team only, or are they also to celebrate the achievements of the world? Justin.
Well, I as you say, I'm here in Beijing, so I'm watching the CCTV broadcasts and seeing it from a Chinese perspective, but I'm also fortunate enough to have access to many other national channels. Of course, those national channels, whether it be Canada or Australia or the US or the Netherlands, are all showcasing their athletes, right? But at the same time, yes, they are telling a unified story about the successes of athletes from other countries. It's all about national pride, and they want to show their successes. No question at all. It is probably the most patriotic time of any country is during the Olympic Games. You cannot criticize anybody for going over.
No, that's why you have sports. You don't have war, right? You want to have the sports in order to celebrate, a collective spirit, not using war to do that. That's the point of sports, isn't it? Also.
Yeah, so I would say that the media, all of the media I watched, there was nothing politically oriented. Yes, there's some stories about anti-doping or gender issues or these types of things, but this is the generation that we're in. You can't avoid these things, and elite sport is very heavily scrutinized to make sure that everything is fair.
Yeah.
But there was nothing about politics, and it was really great to see. Nothing that I saw anyway had anything to do with politics.
Paul?
Yeah, I
role
think,
of the media.
Yes, I think the Olympic Games or the IOC has been carrying on this, signal distribution, better and better pictures of the games themselves. They are just like reality shows, you should allow people around the world to watch the games themselves via the official broadcasters like the NBC in the United States and like CCTV in China. But at the same time, in this internet age, I think we are seeing an increasing number of individual reporters now stationed in Paris over the last few weeks because they do their own interpretations between the original signal, like the original pictures of the competitions, and their receiving fans or the receiving customers, I mean, on the other side of the internet. And they are all biased, and sometimes even with misinformation and disinformation, they play a significant role that you cannot ignore from the so-called media side, the individual or private media. That's especially the case here in China, because the games are delivered mostly in a foreign language and international rules. You need someone in between to interpret, to explain what really going on, especially behind the scene, what the discussion between a Chinese player and his or her counterpart from a foreign team. And that create a lot of room for these media experts or specialists to do their own work, but they also need to understand how ethical they should be when you deliver the information to your target audience without creating unnecessary trouble, which is far from truth.
A lot of discussions to be continued. Thank you so much, Justin Downs and Paul Dong. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of the team, thanks for being with us. Bye for now.